This is Polyamory Weekly, tales from the front of responsible non-monogamy from a pansexual, kink-friendly point of view. A warning for our under-18 listeners. This is an adult-oriented podcast about really lascivious things, like communication and honesty in relationships. If you're under 18 and looking for upfront advice and answers to questions about sex, please visit scarletteen.com.
This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 577 for August 4th, 2019. Coming up on today's show, what if love is a zero-sum game? That's coming up on today's show. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Minx, here with my co-host, Lusty Guy.
Happy and lucky to be here as always. Hello, everybody.
And we have a fun show for you with a listener question. We've got some interesting poly in the news. We've got some really fun feedback and follow-up. It's action-packed. Okay, well, jam-packed.
Jam-packed with action?
Not so much action.
Not so much jam either, really.
Yeah, there's no jam in this show.
There's no jam.
I guess the first thing in our host chat section is we should say we had a really great vacation in Copenhagen.
We did. Copenhagen was incredible. We biked around. We saw all the amazing sights. We looked not only at the buildings and structures that were hundreds of years old, but also at the ones that were decades old. And it was really neat being in a culture that values design the way that the Danes do. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was really fun. And that's, by the way, why you didn't get a podcast from us in July, because we were out tooling around. But we are back on our mics with some good stuff for you.
Traded the bikes for the mics.
Yes, there you go. Although we biked today here in Seattle.
We had a beautiful bike ride today.
Yeah, it was a lovely bike ride. And in terms of who's been where, I did just record an episode for J.R. Blackwell's new D&D Dads episode about exactly what it sounds like, Dungeons & Dragons dads. Yeah. But it's not out yet. So stay tuned. I will let you know as soon as that podcast is up and running.
You know, it occurs to me that both gaming and non-monogamy, two things that I was into since I was in the 80s when I was a kid, are both kind of having their cultural moment right now.
Yeah. They're all normalized and good, and everybody's cool and down with it.
That's
well,
weird.
Maybe not everyone, but
it's strange.
The first article we'll cover in Poly in the News is from the New York Times.
Dun, 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 the gray lady.
You folks may remember that the New York Times Magazine did an article on polyamory that was not well received and not accurate and had the entire community up in arms about it a while back. This one, at least on the surface, appears to be more balanced. Alan from Poly in the News blog says that this article entitled Polyamory Works for Them is getting a lot of attention. He says it presents a stunning view of polyamory enhanced by Yael Malka's gorgeous photography. That is not the one I'm familiar with in my part of the poly world. The people come across as the social and sexual upper crust of New York City's young style and culture influencers. And BTW, he writes, I counted. This time, the photography presents 15 black faces, 9 white ones, and 2 that I don't classify. I wonder if someone at the Times style section took on board the criticisms of whitewashing and tokenism that followed the Times' last massive, photo-heavy, consensual non-monogamy feature, Is an Open Marriage a Happier Marriage? From May 11th, 2017. That's the one I just referred to. Now, we should say, first off, that Lusty Guy will not be participating in the commentary on this article. You want to share why?
Yeah, actually, we had a great conversation about this before the show, and I'll get you into a little bit of how the sausage is made. When this topic came up and we wanted to include it in the show, I told Minx that I just didn't have enough data to be able to actually address some of the concerns that she'll be talking about this article. That not only would I have to very carefully read the article, I'd have to do a bunch of research as well before I could say anything about it. And Minx was like, meh, I'm okay. I've got what I've got. I'm okay happy saying what I'm saying. So we agreed that we would let her cover it. And I would expressly say, I don't know, because I don't know.
Yeah, and we can always have follow-up coverage as more information comes to light. I decided to go ahead and cover it because while my information is certainly not complete, it is a news item that just came out, and so I thought it was worthy of mention, in addition to some of the concerns about the article, which I will talk about now. So first I should note this is a long-form article, and as Alan mentioned, it does appear to have a good cross-section in terms of racial diversity, a little gender identity, and different types of configurations. One part that really stuck out to me, I thought there was a very notable quote when a member of AV who is raising kids calls Poly a really good life hack. One of his quotes is, this is Mr. Play, one of his quotes is, 3 incomes, 3 parents, no one feels like they're drowning in responsibility. And then he says, I think this is really beneficial, a good life hack. Now, Lusty Guy pointed out to me that there has been some controversy about the article he saw on someone's Facebook wall. And so I took a look, and Chrissy Holman, whom you may know from the Consensual Non-Monogamy Task Force and Open Love New York City, did in fact post on her Facebook wall some of the concerns that Mr. Play, who is highlighted in the article, has some unaddressed allegations of consent violations. And another concern is that the article is primarily a vehicle for promoting the counseling services of 2 people showcased in the article, Effie Blue and Jana Vrangalova, both of which offer services to couples exploring and participating in consensual non-monogamy. So in short, the article exists. It just went up yesterday as of this recording, which is August 4th. It is a long-form article in the New York Times, so undoubtedly get a lot of coverage. As we get more information on the response and reaction to this article, we will let you know. The next Poly in the News item is much less controversial. It's entitled, TV's Most Interesting Polyamorous Relationship, says TV Guide, about this, I guess, mainstream TV series called Siren, in which 2 marine biologists fall in love with, you guessed it, a homicidal mermaid.
I mean, of course, right? Why hasn't this been done before? It's so obvious.
Of course. And you know how difficult that is when your metamour starts singing and therefore causing the doom and devastation of other people around you. Hate when that happens.
Oh, man. Always a bad weekend. You know, it's funny because I've actually bumped into this show now from a couple of different places, and I guess we got to try it and watch it, see what we think.
Okay. I'm down for that.
We're always looking for new episodic television that won't make me retch and that you'll watch, so...
Well, we don't know if it'll meet your standards, but we should at least watch an episode, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about it next week. But for now, I am comfortable saying that showing this in this particular series, even though it's a fantasy series, is, as Alan says in his Poly in the News article, which we will link to at polyweekly.com, this is still an important step towards inclusion by incorporating a poly relationship into a storyline.
Well, absolutely.
Still counts.
When TV Guide is using the term polyamory, come on, that's a sign of, again, something having its cultural moment.
It's mainstreamization, normalization, whatever isation we want to use.
Yeah, what is it? You wanted to say it's normal as peanut butter? Wasn't that your line?
Yes, something like that. That was the headline of one of my talks at Poly Living, 5 years ago? Something like that?
Yeah.
And now for our topic this week, what if love is a zero-sum game? And since this was written in by listener Micah, Lusty Guy, would you care to summarize?
That's right. Here I come. So Micah writes to say that their wife of 11 years asked to open up a relationship, and Micah agreed it was better than her having an affair, although he didn't really want or need to. They did no research, and she started having an affair, Micah writes, with a man approximately half her age. Micah was jealous and struggled emotionally to be on board, binging on back episodes of Poly Weekly. I gotta say, That's a funny image. I'm not laughing at you, Micah. I hope you realize, but the notion of somebody who's emotionally hurt, maybe grabbing a tub of ice cream and binging on past episodes of Poly Weekly, that makes me smile.
I just like that in his letter he specified these are the episode numbers I listened to specifically. He's doing the research.
Absolutely. So Micah writes, she started an affair. I was jealous and crushed. Over the past 2 months, I have begun to learn about poly. While intellectually I understand it, emotionally I have struggled to get on board. In all the discussions, you take it as a given, a fundamental assumption, that love is not zero-sum, and that adding a lover will not reduce or diminish one's love for a primary partner. But that has not been my experience. While my wife says she still loves me, wants to stay with me, and that her love has not diminished, her love that she shows me has diminished, especially the sex. She was already the lower desire partner. I like sex most days, potentially more than once, and she wants it a few times a month. Before her affair, we made love roughly every 4 or 5 days, but since she has been much less interested. I should confess one complicating factor. My metamour is not really poly. He knew we were married, and she told him we were open, but as soon as they hooked up, he became uncomfortable with the idea of her sleeping with me too. I know this is one factor, but my impression is that even independent of him, she does not feel really comfortable going back and forth between us and having sex with both of us contemporaneously. Since her affair, we have made love less and less, and when we have it, it's been a bit forced. Am I alone in this? Most of the podcasts paint a very rosy picture, suggesting there is plenty of love to go around and getting a poly is easy. But have others felt neglected and experienced that their primary partner is less available after launching into a poly affair? What advice do you have about how to keep a marriage strong if the low desire partner wants to give most of their love, or at least most of their sex, to a new lover, not the old shoe of a husband?
Well, I will start with that and say that if we are painting a rosy picture, then we need to work out to be more balanced because what we try to say is that things certainly can work, but it does require a level of emotional work depending upon where you're starting from in terms of your personal self-esteem and self-development. And frankly, it doesn't always work out. So I hope we're not being we try to be positive without being too rosy. So acknowledge that. And the other thing I feel like we really need to acknowledge is that, you could be right. It is unfortunately not uncommon for someone to use poly as a way to get out of an existing relationship. That may be happening here. It may not be happening here. We don't really know. But I just want to acknowledge that sometimes people do that. They say they want to try poly when what they really want to do is end their existing relationship and do something else.
One of the things that I am wondering about as I read this letter, Micah, is that you continually use a particular word, affair. She started her poly affair. She started an affair. Was it an affair in that you didn't know it was happening, you didn't know it was going to happen, you had no idea of it and she revealed it to you? Or was it that you knew something was going to happen because you're starting this conversation about, I don't know. That use of that term affair suggests to me, as you say, you're feeling jealous and crushed, and you continue feeling that way. And so kind of the meaning that I'm taking out of this is you're asking, how do we strengthen our relationship in light of feeling jealous and crushed? Because really the fact that she's got this new lover, even though you're doing a lot of before and after games, which aren't helpful, by the way, I don't know if that's the problem. I suspect the problem was something that pre-existed this new lover. Oftentimes, when there is a vast disparity, not always, by the way, but oftentimes when there is a vast disparity between libido of people in a relationship, there is also a vast disparity between people's perceptions of the health of that relationship. With the person who has more libido thinking everything's fine, and the person who has less libido thinking things are not so fine. So, what I hear you saying is, how do we strengthen our relationship? Well, the way you strengthen your relationship is the two of you sit down and talk about it and agree that that's what you want to do. First of all, because it might not be, right? Make sure that you're both on the same page. We both want to strengthen our relationship. And then talk about the particular impediments to that. Why is it that the relationship isn't as strong? Right now, what I hear you doing is a whole bunch of, well, before the affair, things were better, and now the affair has happened and things are worse. And I don't know how helpful that is to you. What is more helpful is to specifically think about the behaviors that are making you feel poorly, the behaviors that you would need to help you feel better, and your willingness to engage in those behaviors for your wife, and your ability to make a space for her to communicate those behaviors that she needs from you and her feelings. So basically, what it feels like to me that you've done is taken a relationship that had some problems and added a lover. That's hard. Doesn't have anything to do with polyamory. Doesn't have anything to do with consensual non-monogamy. It has to do with the fact that you guys probably have some relationship issues that you're not talking about and addressing. And in light of that, you've added a lover. That just turns everything up to 11.
Yeah, that's relationship broken, add more people. And it doesn't work out very often.
No.
And you're echoing a lot of the sentiment I wanted to express too, which is it's unclear to me whether you've actually had a conversation like this with your wife. Have you talked with her about how you feel? Does she know that you're feeling jealous and crushed? Or have you been trying to deal with it on your own? Have you asked specifically for what you want? Have you asked for, more sex? Or, is there something more specific that you want in terms of sex or affection or something that would help you feel valued and special that she could give you? I mean, it could be that, I'll say I have a low libido as well, compared to most of my partners. I'm not sure in the grand scheme of things where I sit, but I will say with most of my partners who tend to have really high libidos, I have a relatively low one. And I feel guilty about it all the time. Lusty Guy is really fantastic about giving me an out and making sure I never feel pressured into anything. But there are also other things that we do in addition to sex as often as I can get it up, so to speak. But there are other things I do to show love and emotion. I was just making a joke this week that photos are my love language. Seriously, if I take good pictures of you and post them or give them to you, that's how I show that you're important to me. It's not the only one, but I realize it's a little bit of a joke, but it's really true. Have you talked to your wife about what it is, specific behaviors that she can do that will help you feel like you're important to her, like she's not taking the affection and sex and giving it to this other person instead of to you? Have you had that conversation?
Now, let me also say, if we have not been completely clear about this, you have every right to have your needs addressed and considered and made important by the people in your relationship. As do the people in your relationships have every right to expect you to make their needs important. So again, regardless of whether or not you guys are doing consensual non-monogamy, you have every right to say, I need to feel some more affection. I need to feel closer to you. And I could do that by this. And if that doesn't work, maybe here's a compromise. Or, even if you can expand as Minx was saying, expand your view of what would help you feel close. So maybe just taking a bath together might work, something that isn't even sexual. But the point is, really my impression, Micah, reading this letter is that you and your wife have some foundational work to do. You got to sit down and start having some serious conversations between the two of you where you each reveal your vulnerabilities, your needs, your weaknesses, and how you're going to help each other address and make each other better versions of yourselves, or at least help to do that.
It's time for your Happy Poly Moment of the Week, brought to you by Fubbly Polyamorists everywhere.
Our Happy Poly Moment this week is from Sky, who writes in to say, I'm writing in with a Happy Poly Moment, even though I'm one of your monogamous listeners.
Woo.
Maybe it counts. It totally counts.
Totally.
My partner told me today that he wanted to talk to me about something that he feels really guilty about. He feels a super intense attraction to one of his coworkers. We've talked about the possibility of being polyam before, but decided as artists with day jobs, we didn't have time for other relationships. So I asked if that was something he wanted to rethink. He said no, he just feels guilty for being attracted to anyone other than me. I basically laughed out loud and was like, that's totally normal. For a moment, the thought crossed my mind of, if he has a crush on her, does he love me less? And then I laughed again at myself for almost falling for that kind of all or nothing thinking about love. Before subscribing to you 4 years ago, this kind of conversation would have really crushed me and spun me into a jealous storm. I'm so grateful for your podcast and how learning about polyamory has taken the pressure off of polyamorous and monogamous relationships alike. I think he feels relieved after our conversation today. Also, fun fact, getting married in October. Well, congratulations, Sky, and thank you. I love that our monogamous listeners get stuff out of the podcast, too.
I just wish that everybody could see the light on Minx's face. When someone writes in with a letter like that, it really makes her happy. It's a privilege and an honor to be able to be someone that someone says, hey, listening to you 4 years has helped me out. Thank you for writing in. And I got to say, too, the whole artist with day job thing, yeah, I get it. I get it as an actor, man. Tip of the hat there for that thinking.
Our first bit of feedback is a follow-up from Soft Shell Crabby, who you may remember from episode 574, Is It Okay to Ask to Meet My Metamour? Quick summary, Soft Shell Crabby's boyfriend and her transitioned from a don't ask, don't tell relationship to full, honest, transparent polyamory. But she got uncomfortable and wanted to meet her formerly DADT metamour when she was coming to visit him the next month. So, Soft Shell Crabby, who now signs as Ms. Work in Progress,
I love that.
Thank you so much. I respect and appreciate your wise advice and the fact that as a person new to polyamory, I can count on you as a trusted resource for help and guidance. I took your advice and talked, really vomited, everything I was feeling about the situation to my boyfriend during a very emotional phone conversation. I shared with him how uncomfortable his choice in sexual partners made me feel with regard to her marital status. The fact that the events surrounding his tryst made me uneasy and like I was being forced to play a part caused me to feel insecure about how he plans to treat our relationship. I explained to him that because I've met his lover and because we share a very cordial friendship, it makes me feel closer and more secure with him to know that I can openly chat with his lover. I wasn't trying to ruin his fun. I was only trying to make him aware of the impact it was having on me. Luckily, your advice has helped us to find a compromise that we felt we could both live with, where I don't feel like a party to dishonest behavior, and he feels like he's able to continue having sexual encounters with other women without offending my morals. I'm thankful that we share the same level of commitment to loving each other in a healthy manner and respecting each other's boundaries. What more could I ask for as we work to find our equilibrium? Hope that I can continue to glean pearls of wisdom from your show for a long time to come. Thank you so much for providing the inspiration I needed. Work in progress.
Bravo. And hats off to you for actually doing the work.
For doing the actual work. Next bit of feedback is from Reama or Reama, not sure how to pronounce. You were the first podcast I ever loved, and I'm ruined for any other.
You do have that effect on people.
I love it. Minx, your episodes are well-timed, filled with solid and creative content, and edited so well. Other hosts seem to blather on, but you always stay on topic and keep it concise. I value that. Thanks for being awesome and setting my bar so very high. That's great to hear. A little bit of back patting there, patting myself on the back.
Absolutely. Twice over. Now you've got enough motivation to do the next episode.
How about I pat you on the back, you pat me on the back, so then it feels more mutual.
That's kind of reminiscent of other things we do.
That's true. It's a little 69 feedback. I love it.
I like it.
As I caught up on my email from missing publication in July, we have 4 new Poly Weekly Playmates.
Wow.
Welcome to Mirjam, Quinlan, Melvin, and I'm so going to butcher this name, Syncione.
Better guess than I got.
Something like that. I so apologize. I hope one of those was close to right. Thank you so much for your donations and subscriptions. We are a free resource. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people navigate their introduction to and continued success with polyamory. Your donations keep the podcast free for everybody both inside and outside the community. If you ever have questions, comments, or feedback, call 802-505-POLY, email polyweekly@gmail.com. If you have any type of business proposal, speaking session, a Skype session, affiliate program, pitch for a TV show, email lustyguy at polyweekly.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/polyweekly or Twitter at @polyweekly or @cunningminx. Thanks so much for listening, and remember, it's not all about the sex.